Hello, your week's off to a great start so far. I'm Daniel Che here to bring you the latest. Let us begin first with headlines. The ASEAN-Korea Commemorative Summit begins. President Moon Jae-in is busier than ever hosting the largest international event of his administration with numerous summit meetings as well as various sideline agendas. Despite Seoul's decision to conditionally extend the termination of its military intel sharing pact with Tokyo, tensions flare up once again following controversial remarks by the Japanese government. Pro-democracy candidates in Hong Kong are victorious in local council elections. This is seen as a de facto referendum on the city's ongoing protests. Our starting point is the welcoming dinner banquet for the leaders of ASEAN participating in the summit in Busan. There, President Moon Jae-in said the gathering will show the world that all participating nations are dreaming as one community. He added the ASEAN bloc is at a crucial juncture as it takes a new leap on the foundation of relations that dates back 30 years. The South Korean leader also mentioned that while all member states are different, they can all build close cooperation through mutual understanding. President Moon Jae-in is busier than ever, holding meetings with visiting leaders. That includes the heads of state of Thailand, Indonesia, and the Philippines. According to our Park Hee-jun, he was focused on enhancing joint efforts in boosting economic ties and cooperation for peace on the peninsula.
President Moon Jae-in is determined to boost economic cooperation with Southeast Asia to achieve mutual prosperity, evident during a series of bilateral summits with ASEAN countries in Busan on Monday. At his summit talks with Thailand's Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha, President Moon said he looks forward to expanding the two countries' partnership in various areas, including science technology.
태국은 우리 정부가 추진 중인 신남방 정책의 가장 중요한 협력 파트너입니다. 국방과 방산, 물관리, 과학기술, 인프라, 인적 교류, 협력 등 다양한 분야로 양국 간 협력이 확대되길 기대합니다.
And with Indonesia being the only Southeast Asian country that South Korea has established a special strategic partnership with, the president shared with Indonesian President Joko Widodo hopes to raise trade volume to $30 billion by 2022.
양국은 이제 서로에게 꼭 필요한 나라로 공동 번영을 추구하고 있습니다. 지난해 교역 규모는 200억 불에 도달했고 세파 협정의 최종 타결로 양국의 교역이 더욱 활발해질 것입니다.
South Korea's trade with the Philippines is also seeing a steady increase. During his talks with President Rodrigo Duterte, President Moon highlighted the fact that they reached $15 billion of trade volume last year. They will work together to sign an FTA deal next year while continuing their partnership in infrastructure and energy. With all three nations having diplomatic ties with North Korea, they actively exchange their views on the developments surrounding the Korean Peninsula. The leaders of Thailand, Indonesia, and the Philippines all agreed to keep supporting Korea's drive for peace and denuclearization. Park Hee-jun, Arirang News, Busan.
Turning our attention to the ASEAN-Korea CEO Summit now, business leaders and government officials exchange insights on the past 30 years of cooperation and the next decades to come. Kim Hye-sung fills us in on what was discussed.
Ways to boost cooperation and foster co-prosperity between ASEAN and Korea. That was the key theme of the CEO Summit on Monday, attended by over 500 government officials and business leaders.
Korea-ASEAN relations are at their highest point since dialogue was established 30 years ago. Bilateral trade is expected to reach $200 billion by next year. The global value chain is changing rapidly amid growing uncertainties. We look forward to the signing of the RCEP deal to expand economic cooperation between Korea and ASEAN.
Bilateral trade has increased 20-fold from $8 billion in 1989 to $160 billion in 2018, and ASEAN is Korea's second-largest trading partner. During the three sessions of the business summit, participants, including renowned investor Jim Rogers, emphasized that Korea and ASEAN will drive global growth in the coming decades, given the relatively low debt in Asia compared to other parts of the world and a young population providing the labor, capital, and demand to drive growth. Business leaders pointed to establishing a regional industrial complex and coming up with joint technology standards as ways to boost synergy between Korea and ASEAN.
we would like to have more cooperation of the Korea with the ASEAN in the high tech, in startup, in innovation, in high value added industry and services. I think the Korea have the advantage in this own of this field, and the ASEAN we have the labor resource, and we have good policy to support innovation.
While the past 30 years of cooperation was mainly in investment and the manufacturing sector, participants said cooperation should now move further into services and startups, including driverless cars. To do so, people-to-people exchanges between businesses and education institutes, a clear rule of law, and policy consistency will be key. Kim Hae-sung, Arirang News, Busan.
President Moon also attended that event. The South Korean leader emphasized a vision to further boost Seoul-ASEAN cooperation to become a community that prospers together. Kim Min-ji shares with us his remarks.
President Moon Jae-in says South Korea and ASEAN will become a community in which they grow together, highlighting the importance of their partnership. Speaking at the CEO Summit on the sidelines of the ASEAN-Korea Summit in Busan on Monday, Moon said that South Korea and ASEAN have been stepping up cooperation on more and more fronts, from diplomacy and commerce to culture and defense, adding that Seoul as an optimal partner for the bloc.
발전 가능성이 무궁무진하며 평균 연령 29세의 젊은 아세안에게 한국은 믿을 만한 최적의 파트너가 아닐 수 없습니다. 한국과 함께라면 더 빨리, 더 멀리 함께 성장하는 공동체가 될 것입니다.
To achieve this, President Moon presented a three-point vision, which first seeks to boost people-to-people exchanges. Moon said that South Korea will support the establishment of education and research institutes to share Seoul's development experience with ASEAN nations. Also part of his plan is stepping up cooperation to achieve co-prosperity and innovative growth, as well as boosting connectivity.
내년에 만들어지는 신남방 비즈니스 협력센터는 한국 기업의 아세안 진출을 촉진하고 아세안 기업의 경쟁력을 강화하는 주춧돌이 될 것입니다. 아세안은 연계성 강화에 많은 노력을 기울이고 있습니다. 한국이 보유한 교통, 에너지, 스마트 시티 분야의 강점을 활용하여 아세안의 인프라 건설을 돕겠습니다.
The president said this whole will go hand in hand with ASEAN because development there is in turn the development of South Korea. He also called for an inclusive spirit from ASEAN nations to incorporate North Korea, saying that if denuclearization is achieved, they will become an East Asian community. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News, Busan.
It's a busy day at BEXCO, the venue for the grand gathering. Many special events are held to keep participants and visitors occupied. Our Hong Yu takes us around the convention center to provide a glimpse of the summit atmosphere.
With so many different summits and side meetings happening at BEXCO this week, the International Media Center is where both local and foreign media from Southeast Asia and further afield have set up camp. Here at the International Media Center, around 2,000 reporters are on standby to cover the key events of the summit, which more than 14,000 people are expected to attend.
Today, I cover the Culture Innovation Summit, where President Moon emphasized cooperation between South Korea and ASEAN nations to take their joint culture to the global level. It's a busy schedule.
To secure the safety of delegations taking part in the events, security is tight. Fences have been installed on the sidewalks around BEXCO, and the guards are allowing only those that have registered passes to enter. An unmanned patrol vehicle called HR Sherpa can be seen along with police on electronic transporters patrolling the area. With a wide range of special exhibitions such as the Korea Grand Sourcing Fair also taking place in the convention center, many guests from ASEAN countries were here to introduce their companies to new customers.
I'm from Vietnam, and I work for one of the biggest IT company in Vietnam. We're here to show our digital solution and our capability in IT services.
Participants from all over the world have come here with high expectations over what can be accomplished at this event. Hong Yu, Arirang News, Busan.
The Cultural Innovation Summit was also held in BEXCO. President Moon emphasized the need for closer cooperation between South Korea and ASEAN members on that front. Kim Mo-kyun has the highlights from that session.
World-renowned content producers gathered at the 2019 ASEAN-ROK Cultural Innovation Summit on Monday on the sidelines of the ASEAN-Korea Commemorative Summit. Some 600 people, including President Moon Jae-in and his counterparts from Thailand, Laos, and Myanmar, were in attendance. During his welcoming remarks, President Moon Jae-in stressed the need to work with Southeast Asia to foster cooperation in the cultural sector.
한국이 같은 문화적 정체성 위에서 아시안 문화 콘텐츠의 동반자가 되겠습니다. 아세안과 협력해 글로벌 문화 시장 진출을 모색하고 미래 세대의 상호 이해와 우정을 깊게 다지는 문화 교류의 협력 플랫폼으로 발전시켜 나가겠습니다.
The Korean president vowed to hold the Cultural Innovation Summit on a yearly basis and create campaigns and organizations aimed at boosting cooperation in the film and culture education sector. A total of 5 speakers have been invited to speak during the forum, including big hit entertainment CEO Bang Si-hyuk, the producer of the leading K-pop stars BTS, as well as Netflix CEO Reed Hastings and the head of IME Entertainment Group, Brian Chow. The speakers in general spoke of the role of the Korean wave and 5G and AI technologies in developing the contents industry. SK Telecom CEO Park Jung-ho and animation director Pierre Coffin also delivered speeches on their experiences and ideas to create contents that can be shared by the global community based on Korea and the ASEAN countries' own cultures. The Blue House says that the ASEAN-ROK Culture Innovation Summit reveals new potential for growth and provides a blueprint for practical cooperation between South Korea and the ASEAN nations. Kim Mo-kyun, Arirang News, Busan.
South Korea will expand development partnership with ASEAN countries to promote peace and prosperity in the region. Seoul's top diplomat attended a signing ceremony of the nation's official aid agency, KOICA, which sealed an MOU with 5 ASEAN nations: Cambodia, Laos, the Philippines, Myanmar, and Vietnam. Along with key officials from those countries and the Secretary General of ASEAN, Foreign Minister Kang Kyung-hwa inked the deal specifying core areas of development in infrastructure, ICT, smart cities, agriculture, and transportation. Over the years, South Korea has designated 6 ASEAN members as key partners, allocating more than 20% of its foreign aid to projects in the region. According to KOICA's president Lee Mi-kyung, Seoul provided a model of development and hope for many countries. She added Korea will continue working with ASEAN to achieve mutual progress and prosperity. South Korea and countries along the Mekong River have many similarities, including a war-torn past. Seoul's official aid agency aims to ramp up efforts to bring peace and prosperity to the region with greater development cooperation. Woo Si-young has the full story.
Removing the remnants of war along the Mekong River, South Korea is aiming to restore the land for generations to come. Korea's official aid agency, KOICA, has been helping clear landmines from countries that were affected by the Indochina Wars. More than 220,000 people have been injured or killed by the explosives since the 1960s, across Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, and Myanmar in particular. In those countries, KOICA is supporting locals affected by war and replacing the former conflict zones with peace villages.
This initiative encompasses 3 P values: people, peace, and prosperity, and is receiving great attention and expectations from the governments and people of the partner countries in the Mekong region.
KOICA on Monday signed MOUs with Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, the Philippines, and Vietnam to strengthen cooperation in core areas of development.
ASEAN countries are included in the KOICA's high priority partner countries. Following the government's new southern policy, KOICA plans to double the ODA volume to those countries in the next 5 years. We also aim to enhance the effectiveness of development cooperation by means of focusing on 5 areas of digital partnership, higher education, rural development, smart cities, and transportation.
Korea's official development assistance to the 5 countries and Indonesia has grown from $86.7 million in 2011 to $115.8 million in 2017. Its flagship projects include rural development, ICT training and infrastructure, education, women's empowerment and leadership, as well as public policy. Since 1991, KOICA has expanded its operations to 44 offices around the globe, implementing diverse development projects, training and overseas volunteering programs. South Korea soon celebrates its 10-year anniversary of its transition from a recipient country of international aid to an official donor country in 2009. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Shifting our focus to the Seoul-Tokyo Intel Sharing Pact, which has been extended but is once again caught up in controversy. Japanese officials reportedly construed the deal as a one-sided win for them, with no concessions made on trade and denials of apologizing to Seoul for such distortion. Shin Jae-min has the latest.
In a readout to reporters, South Korea's senior presidential secretary for public communication again confirmed that Tokyo did apologize to Seoul for the controversy Japanese officials created by claiming that the Jisomya decision was a total win for Japan. South Korea's presidential office was responding to a report in the Japanese daily Yomiuri Shimbun, quoting an official at Japan's foreign ministry as denying that Japan had apologized to South Korea. According to Seoul's National Security Director Chung Eui-yong, the day before, Japan made an apology after Seoul filed a formal complaint over the distorted way Japan made the Jisomya announcement. Chung had also expressed grave regret over Japan possibly having leaked details about Jisomya's extension before it was announced last Friday. And he added the Japanese Trade Ministry exaggerated what it got out of the deal by claiming it had made no concessions at all. Japan's Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshihide Suga doubled down on that Monday, saying the export curbs were completely unrelated to Jisomya and that Japan did not apologize. Nevertheless, the South Korean government is clear that it will handle diplomacy with Japan in a principled way. Seoul's trade minister, also on the sidelines of the ASEAN summits in Busan, said the administration will work to speed up the hosting of a policy dialogue between the two countries over export controls. No end in sight, it seems, as to back and forth between the two neighbors on who said what and what was agreed. On top of the warnings already established, the South Korean presidential office is firm that everything depends on Japan's attitude in future negotiations. Shin Jae-min, Arirang News, Busan.
Over in Hong Kong, pro-democracy candidates secured a landslide victory in local elections after the island's residents turned out in record numbers to vote over the weekend. For the first time in a long while, the streets were free of violent clashes between protesters and police. Ji-young has the details.
Hong Kong's opposition pro-democracy camp made major gains in the city's district council elections held on Sunday, with many pro-Beijing candidates losing their seats. According to the South China Morning Post, the pro-democracy camp won more than 340 seats as of Monday noon, a majority in at least 17 of the 18 district councils. On the other hand, pro-Beijing figures gained just 58 seats. The elections recorded an unprecedented turnout with more than 2.9 million people voting, which represents about 71% of registered voters, that is almost half of Hong Kong's population. The city's local council elections didn't generate much interest in the past, as district councillors have little political power and are mainly concerned with local issues, including bus routes and garbage collection. The turnout in the 2015 council elections stood at about 47%. This time, however, the voter turnout hit an all-time high as millions stood in lines to cast their ballots following 6 months of escalating anti-government protests and violent unrest. One of the elected district councils said the poll is a de facto referendum of Hong Kongers' opinion on the government and Chief Executive Carrie Lam's handling of the situation.
I think the Hong Kong people have clearly spoken in a way that this is not only a referendum, but it sends a very strong signal to the government. And I think that the Hong Kong people should really leverage on this result to ask for more democracy in the future.
The results of Sunday's elections are expected to have a direct impact on the Legislative Council elections next year, as candidates are drawn from successful district councillors. Also, 117 of the local councillors will be included in the 1,200-member committee who will vote for Hong Kong's next leader. Meanwhile, Chief Executive Carrie Lam vowed in a statement on Monday that the government will listen humbly and reflect on the voters' opinion. Ji-young, Arirang News.
Moving on to other stories now, millions of people in Korea have already watched Disney's Frozen 2. Understanding that the nation has a strong fan base for the film and its characters since the first movie, its directors visited Seoul. Choi Jung-yoon got a chance to talk to the creators of the hottest winter flick so far.
At a press conference in Seoul on Monday, the two directors of Frozen 2, Chris Buck and Jennifer Lee, thanked the movie's South Korean fans for their support.
We use the word overwhelming a lot, but I don't know how else to explain it. When you work on something and it's a creation of yours that people respond to in such an incredible way and in such an emotional way.
Released on Thursday, Frozen 2 broke the record for the biggest audience in a single day for an animated movie in Korea. And with around 1.6 million tickets sold, it almost beat the film Avengers Endgame. Jennifer Lee, one of the film's directors and screenwriters, says she asks herself every day why the movie is so loved.
Really responding to the emotional journey and courage of these two sisters who are struggling, as we all struggle, to find their place in the world, to cope with growing up, things that are relatable.
Credit for its massive popularity partly goes to the movie's catchy and emotional songs. The key is the back-and-forth process between the songs and the script.
It's always letting the story drive the songs, and then the songs really drive the story. They usually come at a point where the character can't talk anymore. They just have to sing the emotion of the movie.
After 6 long years of anticipation, it also made one of the highest-grossing debuts globally, selling $477 million in tickets worldwide in its first 3 days in theaters. Frozen 2 looks well on its way to becoming the 6th Disney movie to take over $1 billion at the box office this year, following other hits like Avengers Endgame, Toy Story 4, and The Lion King. Choi Jung-yoon, Arirang News.
On a more somber note, singer Goo Hara was found dead last night at her home in Seoul. The shocking incident comes less than 2 months since the death of her friend and fellow K-pop star Sully. An investigation is currently underway. So far, police do not suspect foul play. Lee Kyung-eun reports.
K-pop star Goo Hara was found dead Sunday at the age of 28 at her house in Cheongdam-dong. The Seoul Metropolitan Police Agency said Monday that the body of the former member of K-pop girl group Kara was found by her housekeeper. CCTV shows the singer returning home at 12:35 a.m. and no one entered the home until 6 p.m. when her housekeeper came after being unable to contact her. 2 days earlier, in her last post on Instagram, the singer wrote the Korean words for good night. While the cause of death is still under investigation, police have found a handwritten note on a table in her living room. The note reportedly contains a pessimistic message, but it has not been confirmed whether or not it is real. So far, based on their investigation at the scene and testimony from Goo's bereaved family, police say there seems to be no suspicion of foul play. Goo had been going through difficult times. In May, she was hospitalized after being found unconscious in her home. At the time, she was engaged in a public dispute with her ex-boyfriend, who had threatened to release a sex video. Then in October, another K-pop star, Sully, who was a close friend of Goo's, died in apparent suicide. In the meantime, Goo has spoken out on her social media about her depression and the cyberbullying both the friends have been subjected to. Before her death, however, there were signs that she was doing well. Goo had completed a mini tour in Japan and released a new single earlier this month. The string of suicides in the K-pop scene has raised concern in the local and foreign media about the pressures and public scrutiny young Koreans face in winning and keeping their popularity. Lee Kyung-eun, Arirang News.
This morning, we experienced a sudden cold wave in Seoul as the mercury plunged by more than 10 degrees. But tomorrow, the nation will see milder temperatures that are similar to the seasonal average. Taking a more detailed look at our readings, we'll wake up to the mercury hovering in the single figures. Seoul and Daejeon start off the day at 2 degrees Celsius, Daegu and Gwangju at 4 degrees, while Busan reaches 8 degrees. and the nation is set for clear skies but a cloudy evening. Seoul will reach 12 degrees in the daytime, while Chuncheon reaches 9 degrees and Gwangjun, Busan and Jeju will be more pleasant at 15 degrees. Meanwhile, up to 20 millimeters of rain is expected in Jeju from tonight until tomorrow morning, and the lows will stay around the seasonal average for the rest of the week, while the eastern Gangwon-do province will see frequent rainy or snowy spells. Also in Busan, where the 2019 ASEAN-South Korea Commemorative Summit is being held, blustery conditions with clear skies are in the forecast tomorrow, with a low of 9 degrees and a high of 15 degrees. Wednesday will be clear to start with, but will get cloudier in the afternoon, with similar temperatures to Tuesday. I'll leave you with the weather conditions around the world.
This is where we have to wrap things up. As always, thank you for watching.